Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to try to do something today in this video. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do it because I've seen Seahawks fans on the internet over the last several days. So this might be hard, but we're going to try to do it. And for the next few minutes here, we're going to try something that is hard for a lot of people. We're going to try to keep it real about Geno Smith. We're going to try to be constructive. We're going to try to be honest. We're going to try to actually drill down to the truth here about Geno Smith, how he's playing, where he's going, where can he improve, how can we improve the way in which we utilize him, etc., etc. So this video is not going to be for a lot of you guys because I've seen the comments trying to tell me that Geno Smith is the worst quarterback in the league, trying to tell me that most of the backups in the league are better than Geno Smith, trying to tell me that everything wrong with this team is because of Geno Smith. I've gotten comments that straight up lie about his stats, trying to convince people of something by just straight up making up numbers that are not his numbers or anybody's numbers. I've seen comments insisting that anybody else in the world must be better than this guy that we have right here. This video is not for you guys. So right away, I'm going to tell you, if you don't know how to keep it real for a few minutes here, if you don't know how to talk about this for real, and I think a lot of you guys just don't, I don't think you guys are capable of it. I'm sure there's some video out there you can go comment on and watch, or, well, at the very least watch, if not comment on, that is trying to convince you that Drew Lock is the next Steve Young. I'm sure that video exists, but that's not this video. This video, we're going to talk about Geno Smith here. I want to talk about a few things with regards to his play. How he's done so far this year, really. Not the imaginary version of Geno Smith that a lot of people seem to have in their heads right now, who is basically Zach Wilson. A lot of people seem to think we have Zach Wilson at quarterback right now. So let's look at some numbers here, and we're going to use big boy numbers. We're going to use real, meaningful numbers, not fantasy football crap, because I have seen people post Geno Smith's fantasy football numbers many times this week. And first of all, about half of them make up the numbers. The numbers are just wrong. But even the ones who get it right, they act like that's supposed to be definitive, like that means something. I got news. Touchdowns, interceptions, and yards is only telling you a fraction of the picture. We need to drill deeper if we're going to get the answers here. And there are people out there who work very, very hard to come up with actually meaningful numbers to tell you how a player is playing. Let's take a look at a few of these numbers and try to drill down to the truth here. So the first one I want to use is estimated points added per play. By the way, these stats I'm going to look at here are on rbsdm.com. Ben Baldwin, I believe, is behind this site. Wonderful site. We're going to look at EPA per play. EPA is estimated points added per play in this instance. Basically, it tries to judge how good a player, in this case a quarterback, is by judging how many points that player adds or subtracts from his team per play. So Brock Purdy is currently the king of EPA by far. It's not even close. 0.32 points added. So obviously, this is a statistic designed to capture every single play, not just the 5% of plays where a guy throws a touchdown and the 3% of plays where he throws an interception. There's a big gap of knowledge in there. You guys understand that? When you say this guy has this many touchdowns and this many interceptions, you've got like 10% of the picture. There's another 90% of the picture there that is being completely glossed over. So EPA per play, one of the best stats there is when you're really trying to judge something. Where's Geno Smith? If you reduce it down to quarterbacks that have played at least 160 snaps this year, he is 22nd out of 32. So he is below average to bad in EPA per play. So 0.015 in the negative. So just barely a below average player in terms of EPA, and scaled against the rest of the NFL, below average to bad in this area. There's another stat that I think is useful, and this one might even be better in terms of trying to isolate the effectiveness of the player, because EPA is, of course, dependent on other parts of the play working. This next stat tries to isolate just the player. CPOE, completion percentage above expected. Basically, it takes a look at the throws a player makes and determines what the expected completion percentage should be based off the difficulty of the throws, how open the receiver was, etc., etc., etc. And it compares it to the actual completion percentage. And if you have a positive CPOE, that means you are completing more passes than you should reasonably be expected to. And likewise, if your CPOE is negative, that means you're completing less of your passes than you should. In this area, in this statistic, Geno Smith is doing well. Not like last year. Last year, he was freakishly accurate. This year, he's just very accurate. 7th in the league out of 32 in CPOE, 4.4% above expected. So he's very accurate. His accuracy is not quite elite, but it is very, very good. So the issue, because this is clearly an issue, Geno Smith is below average to bad in EPA. That's a problem. But the problem isn't really accuracy. He's not as accurate as he was last year, but he is still among the most accurate quarterbacks in the league when you take a look at his situation. So you put these two numbers together into what this site calls the EPA plus CPOE composite, which is basically trying to say we're going to take these two very important numbers when evaluating a quarterback, put them together into one number you can use to evaluate who is actually playing the best and the most effectively. You do that. Geno Smith is right in the middle. 16th of 32. Average. Mediocre. Not the worst quarterback in the league. Not worse than all the backups. Not Zach Wilson. No, Zach Wilson's down here. Zach Wilson, he's actually the guy. He's actually what some people seem to think Geno Smith is. This is what Geno Smith is right now. An average quarterback. Through 8 games this year, Geno Smith is average. So let's try to figure out why, because average is not going to cut it. Average is not good enough. Average is not bad, but average is not good. It is quite simply average. So let's try to figure this one out. What is Geno Smith doing well? What is Geno Smith doing poorly? And we're going to have to drill a little bit deeper here. So I found this tweet from JR Fort Gang, or Throw the Damn Ball, on X, or I guess it's a Zeet now. And, I mean, the data is not his, of course. The data belongs to everybody. The data belongs to the universe. But he posted this really nice chart here. I want to take a closer look at it, because I think it helps drill down to one of the things that is making Geno Smith play not so well this year, and another thing that shows that he is excelling in some areas. And that's kind of what I want to highlight here. Because when you talk about benching Geno Smith for Drew Lock, of all people, who is, again, pretty much entirely unproven, yeah, you're going to get rid of some of the stuff Geno Smith is not doing well, but you're losing some of the good things, like I'm going to show in this chart. EPA versus zone, EPA versus man. So basically, it splits the effectiveness of each quarterback depending on what kind of defense they're playing. And as you can see, there is a very stark difference here for Geno Smith. When Geno Smith is against a man coverage defense, when he is playing against man, he's really bad. He is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league against man coverage. The only ones worse are Tyrod Taylor, Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones. Geno Smith is a bottom 5 quarterback against man defense. However, he is really good against zone. He is behind Brock Purdy, Tua, Baker Mayfield, and Tyrod Taylor and Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's basically tied with Stafford, Goff, and Stroud. So he's top 10, very close to top 5. So when you talk about benching Geno Smith, because that's really what we're talking about here, right? Geno Smith versus the guys who are on this roster who can play quarterback who are not Geno Smith. Yeah, you're getting rid of a guy who has been really bad against man defense. So bad, in fact, that he's actually much worse against man than he is good against zone. This is balanced out a little bit, however, by the fact that you see a lot more zone than man in the NFL. You are getting rid of a quarterback who's doing very well against zone defenses. In fact, like I just said, if you take it all in totality, it comes very close to canceling itself out because you play against zone way more than you play against man on the totality of a season. So here we can see something that Geno Smith needs to get better at. He's struggling against man. But we're also seeing the positives here. The things that you throw away if you bench Geno for Drew Lock. So I look at this and I go, I see a lot of bad and I see a lot of good. Why am I throwing away the good when I can just live with the bad and get that good? When the other option, I'm sorry, is far more likely to be just all bad. So again, this idea that Geno Smith is the nut low, that you can't do worse, I'm sorry, it's not real. And that's what this video is trying to be right now. I'm trying to be real with you guys. I'm trying to actually use facts here to dispel this really, really bizarre belief that Geno Smith is the worst quarterback in the league and you can't do worse. I assure you, as charts like this will show, you can definitely do worse. As data like this shows, you can definitely do worse. One more chart that I want to look at here real quick, and this one might be even more telling. This one's from Mr. Menon on Twitter. Again, one of my favorite follows. Go follow him. Post stuff like this constantly. Great, great data. Quarterback EPA per play when running play action versus non-play action. So let's zoom in on this chart here. So the x-axis is, I believe, play action, and then the y-axis is non-play action. So when the Seahawks, when any team, but let's say the Seahawks, do not run play action, Geno Smith is awful. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Justin Fields, Tyson Bagent, PJ Walker, and then the guys who are actually worse are Mac Jones, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, Daniel Jones. So Geno Smith is really bad in these situations. However, EPA per play on play action. When the Seahawks run play action, Geno Smith is almost the best quarterback in the league in terms of generating points. Almost the best. There is one quarterback ahead of him. It's Brock Purdy. So, yeah. Think about that for a second, because that's what you're giving up when you bench Geno Smith for a complete unknown. Not even a complete unknown. Worse than a complete unknown, because our backup quarterback has played and mostly played poorly. So you want to give this up. This guy is better on play action than Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Mahomes, Tua, Josh Allen, all these best quarterbacks in the league. Geno's better at generating EPA per play on play action than all of them so far this season. This is this season. This is not last year. I didn't pull up 2022 data. This is this year. So you can throw this all out and say, well, he's bad on non-play action, so therefore we have to get rid of him, and we have to put in anybody else, put in Michael Dixon at quarterback. God forbid, it has to be better. Or you can just say, let's run more play action, which pretty much every team in the league should be doing anyway. Do more play action. Put Geno Smith in those situations where he excels. Put Geno Smith in those situations where he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Even in a year like this, when Geno is playing at an average to slightly below average level, he is one of the best in the league. Why not just do that? That seems a lot better to me than throwing Drew Lock out there and wishing upon a star that everything you've seen from him so far in his career is just an illusion. This is why I don't take the Drew Lock people seriously. The people who want to put Drew Lock in there right now, just ignore this stuff. Ignore the really good things that Geno Smith can do. It's really hard for me as an impartial observer to take it seriously because he excels in these areas. One more thing I want to look at real quick here. This is from Corbin Smith. He posted this graphic on one of his Zeets earlier for the Locked On Seahawks podcast. Seahawks. Look at their alignment. Look at their effectiveness in those alignments here. In 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers, the Seahawks have been spending 54% of their plays in 11 personnel. And they suck at it. Right now, they are bad at it. They have a negative EPA per play. Their success rate is mediocre at best. They don't generate good EPA on passing plays or running plays. They're not explosive. And this has come at the expense of 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 26%. So less than half of the 11 personnel. And when you do run it, massive EPA per play, big success rate. Passing plays work brilliantly. Rushing plays generate points. Explosive plays, up, way up. 13 personnel is down to 11%. That's 3 tight ends. And look at how good you're doing when you do it. You're generating points. Your success rate is high relative to the formation. Your EPA per pass is through the roof. Your explosive rate is through the roof. Isn't this easier to fix? Like, why not just fix this? And just say, okay, we're going to run more 12 personnel, more 13 personnel. We're going to scale back the 11 personnel. We're going to run more play action. We're going to put Geno Smith in the situations where we know he's good because he was good at it last year and he's been good at it this year. Instead of just saying, let's put in somebody who's never been good and just hope that it works. So that was me trying to be real. Any of you guys want to be real, go ahead, comment, say what you want to say. But I got to be honest, I don't see how the truth can be anything other than what I put in this video. I don't see how there can be any other perspective on it. This is very simple stuff. The Seahawks excel at some things and they're not good at other things, and they are choosing to do the things that they're not very good at more and more. Reduced play action, more receiver, heavy receiver sets, and you get what you get. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Tried to keep it real here.